Ready for takeoff. We're diving into the world of Swedish drones today.
Oh, yeah, should be interesting.
We've got regulations to unpack, innovations to explore, the whole shebang.
And what's great is Sweden's really leading the charge when it comes to responsible drone use, you know?
Yeah, and that's where we've got to start, right? With responsibility.
Uh-huh.
Before we even get to the cool stuff, this info you sent over on Swedish drone regulations, it's pretty serious stuff.
Definitely. They're not messing around.
I mean, camera registration for practically every drone. That surprised me.
It's all about accountability right from the start. If your drone has a camera, no matter how small, gotta register it in Sweden.
No, even those tiny drones, the ones you could practically palm, if they've got a camera, they're registered.
Exactly. It's about knowing who's flying and making sure there's a clear line of responsibility for what those drones are doing, what they're capturing.
Makes sense. But I'm guessing that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Swedish drone laws.
Oh, yeah. There's more.
What are these drone weight classes I read about? C0 to C4 sounds like something out of Star Wars.
Right. But it's all about managing risk, right? Like you wouldn't have someone with a learner's permit driving an 18-wheeler.
Makes sense. So these weight classes determine where and how you can fly.
Exactly. Each class has its own set of rules. The CZs, those are your entry-level drones. They're going to have the most restrictions. Then you work your way up.
So it's like a graduated licensing system, but for drones.
You got it.
Yeah.
As your skill level increases, and your drone does too, you unlock new possibilities.
Okay, so that makes sense. But let's talk about something even more high-tech. Geofencing. What in the world is that?
It sounds super futuristic, right? Basically, imagine setting up invisible boundaries in the sky for your drone. That's essentially what a geofence is.
So it's like a digital fence that keeps drones from flying into restricted airspace.
Exactly. Let's say you're flying near an airport or maybe a nature reserve. With a geofence, your drone just won't cross that predetermined boundary. It's a really effective way to prevent accidents and keep things safe.
And Sweden is really pushing for this technology, right? Especially in newer drone models.
Oh, absolutely. They recognize how important geofencing is for safety and airspace management. It's all about making sure drones are being used responsibly, and geofencing is a big part of that.
It's really impressive how Sweden's prioritizing safety with those virtual boundaries and all. But let's get into some of the exciting stuff.
Yeah, the cool applications, right?
Exactly. What are Swedish companies actually doing with all this drone technology? Because I'm picturing like more than just the occasional package delivery.
Oh, yeah, it goes way beyond that. One area where they're really leading the charge is in emergency response.
Oh, really?
Yeah, using drones to literally save lives.
Okay, see, now that's what I'm talking about. Because I did read something about drones being used to deliver defibrillators. Is that actually happening over there?
Oh, yeah, it's happening right now.
Oh.
They've really recognized in Sweden how critical drones can be in those emergencies where every second counts. Think about it. Someone's having a cardiac arrest and a drone carrying a defibrillator. It can just weave through traffic and get to the patient way faster than an ambulance could, especially in like rural areas or, if it's rush hour.
That's incredible. So
Yeah.
we're talking about like potentially increasing someone's chances of survival because they've got that life-saving equipment delivered to their doorstep in minutes.
Exactly. It's amazing they can be dispatched and guided to the patient with very minimal human intervention even, which just speeds things up even more.
It's incredible how they're being used.
Mhm.
But our sources also mentioned something about environmental protection being a key area where they're being used,
Mhm.
which makes a lot of sense, with Sweden being so big on sustainability.
Yeah.
So what's caught your eye there?
Well, E.ON, which is Sweden's biggest energy company, they're using drones to inspect their power lines.
Okay, that makes sense.
But we're talking over 15,000 miles of power lines across the entire country. Imagine trying to inspect all of that for damage or maintenance needs.
15,000 miles. That's like flying from Stockholm to Sydney and back. I mean, how do they even manage that?
Yeah, that's where the drones come in. They used to do these inspections by helicopter, which, are super expensive, not to mention terrible for the environment. Drones are a much better alternative, and actually just last year, E.ON said that using drones for their power line inspections saved them something like 35 tons of CO2 emissions.
So it's not just about being faster and cheaper, but it's actually having a real positive impact on the environment. That's
Yeah.
impressive. But it's not just power lines, right? I mean, what other eco-friendly things are they doing with drones?
There's actually a ton of other things. We're talking about using drones to monitor deforestation, track endangered species, even study the effects of climate change on the coastline. They're
Wow.
doing a cool project using drones to map and analyze how rising sea levels are impacting coastal erosion in the Baltic Sea, which is really interesting.
It's amazing how they've got their drones in on all these different things.
Hmm.
It feels like the possibilities are limitless, but it's not all about saving lives and the environment right here.
Yeah.
Because we also came across some pretty wild stuff about how drones are being used for traffic management and even like in the forestry industry.
It's amazing. They're really maximizing efficiency across the board.
Yeah.
Like there's this one Swedish company, Ramble. They're using drones to gather real-time traffic data so they can fine-tune their traffic flow models.
Oh, wow. So instead of just relying on those sensors they have on the ground,
Yeah.
they're getting like a bird's eye view of how traffic's moving.
Exactly. And then using that data to optimize things like traffic light timing or even road design, which is amazing.
That's incredible. I mean, that could be a game changer for cities dealing with traffic congestion. But wait, what were you saying about forestry?
Oh, yeah. So they're experimenting with drones to like remotely control heavy machinery in the forest.
Hold on. So you're telling me that they could be controlling logging equipment from miles away with a drone?
It sounds crazy, right?
Wow.
But it's all thanks to the speed of 5G networks.
That's insane. I can only imagine how much that would improve safety and efficiency for the forestry industry, especially when they're working in like remote locations or, difficult terrain.
Right. And it just goes to show how innovative Swedish companies are being in looking for ways to use drones to solve real problems. And the best part, we're just scratching the surface here.
It's mind-blowing to think we're already at this point with drones being used for things like forestry and traffic management.
And it feels like it's just going to keep getting more advanced from here.
Oh, definitely. Especially with 5G coming into play.
Yeah.
How's that going to impact the future of drones in Sweden?
5G is like the key to unlocking their full potential, you know? It's going to change everything.
Okay, so break it down for me. What kind of limitations are we talking about eliminating here?
Well, right now, range is a big one, like how far you can actually fly a drone and still maintain a strong connection.
Right.
5G just blows that out of the water. And then there's the data transmission speeds. We're talking being able to stream super high definition video in real time from potentially hundreds of miles away.
So controlling drones from across the country, getting crystal clear live feeds. That's wild. Especially for a country like Sweden with all its islands and coastline. We can talk about opening up a world of possibilities.
Exactly. Imagine like a team of specialists in Stockholm overseeing a search and rescue mission with a fleet of drones out in the archipelago, or monitoring those massive wind farms they have offshore, all in real time. It's incredible.
It's like night and day. It's like going from dial-up to like super fast broadband, but for drones.
Exactly. And it's not just about speed and range either. 5G also means a much more reliable connection, which is obviously critical when it comes to safety, especially as we move towards more autonomous drone operations.
Autonomous drones. Okay, now that's getting really futuristic. Are Swedish companies making headway in that area too?
Oh, absolutely. They're actually at the forefront of developing the software and systems that will allow drones to basically think for themselves, make decisions on the fly, and navigate really complex environments with very little human intervention.
So instead of just following a pre-programmed flight path, they'll be able to like react to what's happening around them in real time.
Exactly. Imagine a drone inspecting a bridge or something, and it spots a crack that wasn't visible from its original flight plan. It could autonomously adjust its course, get a closer look, and even relay that information back to engineers in real time. It's amazing.
It really is amazing to think about how far things have come and where they're headed. But with all this talk about super fast networks and self-flying drones, it's hard not to think about the potential downsides. Our sources did mention some concerns about privacy, data security, even noise pollution. Is Sweden addressing those challenges as well?
Absolutely. Those are all very valid concerns, especially as drones become more commonplace, and I think Sweden's actually ahead of the curve in many ways.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, for starters, they have really strong data protection laws which apply to the data collected by drones.
So people can't just go around spying on others with their drones and collecting personal information.
Exactly. There are very strict rules about what kind of data can be collected, how it can be used, and for how long it can be stored.
Okay, well, that's good to know. But what about the noise? I mean, I imagine a future with drones constantly buzzing around overhead could get pretty annoying.
Yeah, that's a valid concern, but companies are already working on developing much quieter drones with innovative new propeller designs, and there are ongoing discussions about creating designated drone corridors to minimize any disturbance over residential areas.
So finding that balance, harnessing the power of the technology, while also addressing the very real concerns that people have.
Exactly, and it seems like Sweden's really committed to getting that right.
Well, this has been fascinating. Thanks for taking us on this deep dive into the world of Swedish drones.
Yeah.
It's clear that they're not just embracing the technology, but also shaping it responsibly. It's going to be really interesting to see what the future holds.
Oh, absolutely. The future of drones is looking bright.
It sure is. And for our listeners out there, thanks for joining us on this journey into the world of Swedish innovation. Until next time, keep exploring.